Then I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself. And brightness was all around it, radiating out of its midst like the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. Also from within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. The word whirlwind is defined by Strong's as wind, by resemblance, breath, that is, a sensible or even violent exhalation, figurative, life, anger, unsubstantiality, by extensive, a region of the sky, by resemblance, spirit, but only of a rational being, including its expression and functions. This same word is rendered as spirit 232 times in the King James Old Testament. When we get to verse 13, the appearance of the living creatures are like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. I believe these torches coincide with the 7 lamps of fire, the 7 spirits of God in Revelation 4:5, agreeing with the definition of the whirlwind as spirit. Based on the context and our definitions, we can see that a great cloud and raging fire are not separate from the whirlwind, but an integral part of it. And from out of this comes the likeness of the 4 living creatures. In other words, you cannot separate the cherubim from the other components. Burning coals of fire, remember these passages? Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in so doing, you will heap coals of fire on his head. These passages are quotes from Deuteronomy 32:35 and Proverbs 25:21 and 22. Coals of fire. Vengeance, better rendered as vindication. Is this connected to the appearance of the living creatures? If so, what might this mean? Well, my take, it means that God alone can exact the proper vengeance or vindication, for his purpose in it is always in keeping with his purpose in the resurrection process. These coals of fire point to the following. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, with the prayers of the saints, ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. Here we find reference to the Old Testament altar of incense and altar of burnt offering. Note what Gemini gives us regarding the use of the golden censer. In the context of the Old Testament tabernacle and temple rituals, the function of the golden censer, specifically in relation to the altar of incense, involved both the fire and the aromatic offering. The incense was never burned by self-igniting chemical reaction. It required a heat source. According to Levitical law, the fire had to be holy fire, taken specifically from the brazen altar, located in the outer court. A priest would use a censer to scoop up glowing coals from the brazen altar. Once the coals were in the censer, the incense was placed either onto the coals within the portable censer or onto the altar of incense where the coals had been deposited. The fact that the coals of fire are taken from the brazen altar signifies self-sacrifice, the core of the gospel message. So, to heap coals of fire on someone's head so that God's vengeance is reckoned is to bring God's perfect purpose to bear for them, incorporating his love and mercy and forgiveness. despite tradition's take, God's wrath is God's remedial discipline, not an uncontrolled reaction of anger due to our disobedience. Think about it. If God is omniscient, does he not know beforehand how his creation will act? God does not torture. Judge? Yes. Discipline? Yes. Torture? No. That's man's God. When the angel takes the censer and its fire and incense and throws it into the earth, we see noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. Our word noises should actually be voices, agreeing with our consideration of the wings of the cherubim. A whirlwind, a great cloud with raging fire, brightness, the color of amber, the likeness of four living creatures as burning coals of fire and torches going back and forth, and out of the fire went lightning. And then there are wheels. What is Ezekiel seeing? Is the flaming sword of Genesis 3:24 that turns every way, the wheels of fire enveloping the cherubim? Are we seeing the Creator's process working in the midst, in the minds and hearts of his creation? Is this not a divine and universal process issuing from the throne of the Creator? Whirlwind essentially means wind or breath, indicative of spirit, and we are told that the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. Now, if you have a whirlwind, then all four winds are present, are they not? And isn't a whirlwind a whirling mass of clouds, water, lightning, and thunder? The ESV and Amplified Bible render whirlwind came out of the north as a stormy wind came out of the north. Four living creatures with the four winds of a storm. Coincidence? I don't think so. Now let's return to the following from Revelation 7. After these things I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or on any tree. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, Do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. Four angels, corners, and winds. Remember, that's a 12, indicating divine government or rule of Christ. It's evident that when these four winds are loosed, there is harm to the earth, the sea, and the trees. Now, not for a moment do I think this is literal, for the earth speaks of the carnality of man that dictates his thoughts and ways due to the fruit of his doings. So, it refers to judgment, but always within the scope of self-sacrifice, as symbolized by the coals of fire from the altar of sacrifice, used in the golden censer with the incense and prayers of the saints. Remember, God's judgment is discipline, and God's discipline is remedial. As a matter of study, we should know and understand that the phrase four winds is only found two other times in the King James New Testament. Here are those passages. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And then he will send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest part of earth to the farthest part of heaven. Here we have two things to consider, not only the four winds, but also what is meant by the elect. We'll come back to this. Are these the same four winds seen in Revelation 7:1? I believe they are. And because these four winds of the storm are mixed with fire in the descriptions of the cherubim, I believe we're seeing the work of the flaming sword, which denotes the implementation of the lake of fire or second death, the message of the cross or self-sacrifice that is relevant to every person, regardless of culture or belief. Remember, When considering the cherubim and everything relating to them, we're considering the divine process and working of resurrection within all mankind everywhere. For the resurrection of the dead is sown in corruption to be raised in incorruption. Think about it. The lake of fire consists of water and fire, water symbolizing the thoughts and ways of man and God, and the fire the all-consuming essence of God's fiery law in man's mind and heart. So, the flaming sword is the wheels of fire, is the lake of fire, representing the transformative essence of the message of the cross, which Paul says is the power of God in us. And the four winds, I believe they are the first four spirits of the seven spirits of God, incorporating God's wisdom, understanding, counsel, and might. In the New Testament, this is referred to as the foundation of the world. This is a good place to stop, but be sure to join me in the next study as we continue our look at the four winds. Until then, may God bless you in your walk with Him.